Welcome to the Business of Apparel Podcast. This is the place to learn how to start and scale your own apparel brand and fill it with loyal customers for years to come. I'm your host, Rachel Erickson, owner and CEO of Unmarked Street, and I can't wait to share this episode with you. Welcome back to the Business of Apparel Podcast, where today we're going to do kind of the opposite of what we did last week. Last week's episode was all about hiring at your company and how important I think it is for you to be hiring before you think you need to so that you're set up for success. Today, let's talk a little bit about firing. And this is not a subject that a lot of people like to talk about. It's not even something that I was trained on very well when I was working for big, like Fortune 500 companies. Like I wasn't actually being trained how to fire people properly. It ended up being something that I had to really ask a lot of questions about. I had to read a lot about online. I was actually reading books on like, oh my gosh, we have this employee who... Okay, so story about that. When I first started at Specialized, I was put into a management role, the technical design management role, and I was given a team, a really small team, but I was given a team to manage. And over the next couple of years, we tended to find that one of the people on the team just wasn't really being a team player. At Specialized, we really like to say, it's not just how you work, it's not the work that you do, it's not the talent that you bring. At Specialized, we used to say it's not just the work that you do, it's not the talent that you bring maybe to this role. That's not the only way that we're kind of evaluating your performance here at the company. It's also how you work, and it's how people work with you. And are you a team player? And do you make people feel comfortable when you're working with them? Are you mean to people? Are you rude to people? Do you create a welcoming environment when, you're running a meeting or when you're, bringing people into your space? And we were having one employee that we were just having a really hard time with. I was getting actually a lot of complaints from other team members, outside teams, that this person was becoming really, really difficult to work with. They were super negative all the time. They were actually snapping at people. They were really mean. They were really rude. And then when it came to their goals, we were also finding that they just weren't interested in doing them. So there were a couple of things that we had asked them to do, like, okay, this year we really, really want you to clean up our prototyping lab. We want it to be a place where people can come and tinker and play and make prototypes on their own and like come down and have, like, we really wanted that space to be a welcoming, like fun environment to be in. And they just weren't willing to make that space into what we wanted, and they weren't willing to help. And instead, they actually did the opposite, where anytime anybody would go down to our prototyping lab, they would make the situation really, really awkward, and they would be really negative about everything, and they wouldn't let people use the sewing machines, and they wouldn't let people play with the fabrics or do any sublimation testing. And so it was like a huge, huge hindrance to our team, because having that prototyping lab and me being the manager of it and running it was one of the huge highlights of working at Specialized at the time. Like being able to go down and create rapid prototypes in-house and be able to test them and put them on riders and put them on bikes immediately was a huge advantage for our team. And so we needed that space to be something that people wanted to be in. And so we got to a point where we knew we were going to have some really tough conversations with this person. And we put them on a performance improvement plan. So if you are struggling with an employee at your company, the first step that you really want to do is, number one, have a conversation with them. It's a tough conversation. It's never an exciting conversation. I don't want to get into a room with somebody and have to tell them that I don't think they're doing a great job. But if we can be kind about it and we can be open and honest and candid about how we expect to work as a team, what are our values here as a team? What are we trying to accomplish as a company or as a department? And how is that not quite working based on what they're doing or what they're not doing, right? How do we have that very candid conversation with them? These conversations are a lot more about listening. As a leader, this conversation is so much about listening to why they don't feel like they either want to or can't do the things that you're asking them to do. And so in my situation, we had gotten to a place where we were having some conversations, and this person just didn't want people in their space. They didn't want to be collaborating with other people in the prototyping lab. And so we had to have some tough conversations about, like, This is an initiative not just for our department and not just for our team, but for the company. This is coming straight from leadership down to us. We have to figure out how to do this. So whether we want to or not, we have to be willing sometimes in our jobs to do things that we don't want to do. And the option, if you get stuck into a position, like if you're an employee and your manager comes to you and says, look, we are being told that we have to figure out how to do X, Y, and Z, and you do not want to do X, Y, and Z. Your options really at that point are either to figure out how to still do X, Y, and Z anyway, even though you don't really want to do it, which is what so many of us do in our jobs. Let me say this real quick. It's work, and you get a paycheck because it's work and because they have to pay you to be there. Not everybody loves their job, and it can be great if you are going to a job that you love every single day, but a lot of us have to do things that we don't love to do, that we don't want to do, something that a manager or a leader who's like 5 levels above us wants us to do, and we might not quite understand, but if that's what's being asked of us in our jobs, either we do it or we don't, right? And so either you figure it out and you figure out how to want to do it, or you figure out how to do it regardless of not wanting to do it, or you have the option to leave. You always have the option to leave a job. And you can quit without another job lined up, or you can start finding a new job. You can start going on interviews. You can start getting your resume ready. You can start getting yourself out there, networking, trying to figure out where you could go next so that you can leave a job and go to a better one. Those are always options for you. So as leaders, we have to be able to recognize that as well, right? Our employees have the option, especially if we're getting directive from above us to do something. We're getting directive to either tell our employees they have to do this whether they want to or not, or they have the option to leave. And so those are some of the conversations that I was having to have with this person. Like, I get it that you don't want to do this, but this is something that's really, really important, not just for me, not just for my manager, but for the company. This is even coming from the CEO. He wants to see more rapid prototyping. He wants to see better apparel from us. And the way for us to do that is to be doing testing constantly. We need to be in this space. We need to be creative. We need to be testing things nonstop. The other option is if you don't want to be on the team anymore because this is genuinely something that you don't want, let's talk through that. And they chose that they wanted to stay. So this kind of continued. We continued having these conversations. There were some really nasty conversations. I was called the worst manager on the planet at one point. That was really, really fun for me. That was the first time that like anybody had ever really gotten in my face and told me that I was terrible as a manager, terrible as a leader, terrible as a boss, terrible as a technical designer. I was just the worst. And, those kinds of things really hurt. And I understand that she was in a place where, she didn't want to be doing what I was asking her to be doing. And I was pushing her and we were having some really tough conversations, but sometimes it got ugly. And instead of like firing her or pushing her out the door, we continued to have conversations, and I kind of had to eat that as a leader and let her express herself and let her get her emotions out and let her be vocal about how she felt about how we were interacting on a daily basis. She didn't like me pushing her. So when it came down to it one year after a review of this kind of continuing, I think this had gone on for like 2 straight years. And so we eventually decided to put her on a performance improvement plan. Now, if you get to this stage with an employee, a performance improvement plan is a very formal document that you'll write up with your HR partner. Now, if you don't have an HR team, this is something you as the CEO or the leader will need to do on your own. But it's a very clear set of goals and tasks that you need this person to follow and do to show that they're willing to improve as an employee at your company. So a lot of times we call these PIPs, performance improvement plans. If you've ever heard someone refer to a PIP, this is what they're referring to. If you put someone on a PIP, that's not a good thing. Usually it means that they're at a point where they have to prove that they're willing to get better at their job. If you're doing like formal reviews at your job and you have like a rating system, a lot of different companies will do this at review time, right? Like you have 1 through 5 that you can give your employees. 5 is like above and beyond. They like work so much overtime and accomplished almost the impossible in their job this year. A lot of people at most companies, especially big corporate companies, don't get 5s. They don't love to give those out. It really means something special. Usually people land in that 2 to 4 range, where 3 is like, you did your job. this is what we expected of you. You did it. You met expectations. A 4 is usually you went above and beyond, but you weren't like that illustrious, like, oh my God, you like created the project that we never even knew we needed. 4 is like you went above and beyond. You do more than what's expected of you, but you weren't at that number 5 level. A 2 is like you didn't quite meet expectations, but you're not at the point where we need to put you on a performance improvement plan. That 1 usually comes with a performance improvement plan. So that's like number 2 is usually like needs improvement. Like we need you to do a little bit better this year. Like you didn't show up to meetings. You didn't do your job on time. You did it, but it was always late, or like that's kind of what a 2 range is. A 1 is like, we don't know what you're doing. You're not even doing your job. We're asking you to do some stuff. It's not getting done at all. We're going to put you on a performance improvement plan. Usually those performance improvement plans include 2, 3, or 4 tasks or goals that you want this person to meet in a very, very specific set amount of time. Now, depending on how good or bad of a chance you want to give this person to achieve what's in their PIP, you can give them 30 days. If you're like, I know this isn't going to happen. Like, I just know regardless of how much time I give this person, they are never going to do this. You can give them 30 days. Walk them through it. You need to have a meeting with them basically every single week to walk through like, what progress have you made on your PIP this week? What are you going to be doing in the next week? You need to be having those conversations with them on a regular basis, tracking if they are making any improvements. If you do want to extend their PIP, let's say you gave them a 30-day PIP and they're actually making progress. They're showing some signs that they're going to try and do their work a lot better. You can extend that then. You can say, okay, we're actually going to extend this PIP to 60 days. And we're going to give you 60 days to accomplish all of this stuff because I see you making strides. Your PIP is your PIP to own and manage and lead. Are you sick of being stuck on the sidelines of the apparel industry and you just want to be put in the game? Then join our 100% free workshop, Secrets Behind Billion-Dollar Apparel Brands, and learn the strategies, tactics, and secrets used by the most successful companies in the world. We'll cover everything from setting your brand standards to big brand line planning and executive level processes. In this workshop, you're going to learn how to name your target customer, rationalize your line, calculate product margins, roll up your revenue, and see potential profits while figuring out how to build a unique calendar for your brand. You're going to learn that and so much more. Are you ready to take your apparel business to the next level? Sign up today and use code PODCAST for a 10% discount on the full Business of Apparel online course or any of our mini courses after the workshop. Visit www.thebusinessofapparel.com/secrets to register. Don't miss out. In the situation that I was in, we did put this person on a PIP and they weren't making any progress. So after 30 days, we scheduled a meeting with her and with our HR representative. Usually in this meeting, most people know what's about to happen. I've had different people before throughout my career be like, I've got my meeting tomorrow with HR. We all knew what that meant, right? We all knew that meant that tomorrow they're probably getting their papers to either get some sort of a package, like a severance package to leave the company, or they're just flat out getting fired. They're getting let go tomorrow. So usually most people know what's going on in this meeting. It was really, really hard for me because she did not. When she walked into the room, she thought we were maybe having an update to her PIP or that we were having a conversation about her review. And so that made the conversation just a little bit harder for us. Like, HR will never allow you to say, this is a meeting in which we're letting you go. Like, that is not something that you can put on somebody's calendar. So it is a little bit awkward when they're not anticipating it. I will say most people do anticipate it, especially these days. Layoffs are so rampant right now that if someone sees a meeting on their calendar with their manager and their HR rep, they're probably really, really nervous for it. They might be asking you a lot of questions about it up front because they kind of see it coming. The best advice that I had found when I knew I was going to have to go into this meeting, we had put this employee on a PIP. I started doing a bunch of research. What is this going to have to look like for me if I get into a position where I do have to let them go? Like, how do I do this? What is the right protocol? What is the right way to do it? And I will say that the best advice that I got was like from one of my skip managers at the time. If you don't know what a skip manager, it means like my manager's manager gave me some really, really good advice at the time. And it was kind of matching a lot of the advice that I was finding through books and online articles and different forums that I was researching. And it's just to be really, really swift, be very, very direct, and then leave it at that. Firing sucks. It is hard for you. It is extremely hard for the person that you are letting go. And if you can just kind of rip that Band-Aid off, that usually is the best way to do it. You don't need to go into further explanations, especially if you've already been having those good, candid conversations with them. They've already been on their performance improvement plan. You've already been meeting with them about that performance improvement plan. They know they're not meeting the goals. You do not need to elaborate on anything more in that meeting other than to basically say, today is going to be your last day with the company. Our HR rep is here to walk you through next steps. Those were literally the 2 sentences that I had to say in that meeting. And my HR rep then looked at me, asked her if she had any questions. She did not. She had a terrible look on her face. I thought she was going to come across the table and attack me. I'm guessing my HR rep kind of got that feeling as well because she looked very, very angry. And so my HR rep actually looked at me and said, "Thank you, Rachel. You can actually leave the room. I'll take it from here." And then she kind of handled the rest of it in regards to the severance package that we were going to be offering her and what the next steps were going to be for her to leave the building. And so it sucks. Firing sucks. There's a really good saying out there, though, that says, hire slow and fire fast. So hiring, like we talked about last week, and if you didn't listen to last week's episode, there's a lot of great advice in there about hiring. You really want to take your time to find the right candidate, to find the right person. They're a good match for the values at your company. They're a good match to like get along with your team. You really want to vet them out. You want to hire slow. You want to take your time to get the right person on your team. The mistake that I made in this situation that I've been talking through today is that I did not fire fast. We had gotten to a point on the team where it was so damaged and we were starting to be so behind in our prototyping initiatives because we were really taking our time to give this person so many additional chances. And as an entrepreneur, as you are starting your own company and starting a business of your own, this can be really great advice in the way that like, as soon as you know that someone is not working out, someone is not pulling their weight, someone is not doing what they say they're doing, someone is not working to the level that you need them to be working at, let them go. Let them go kindly. If you want to put them on a performance improvement plan, have those conversations, give them a chance. That is a wonderful, wonderful thing to do. But if you know that this is just not working out, it is not the person who's right for your team, it is 100% your prerogative to just let them go. The reason that we say to hire fast is because if you keep people on your team who have the wrong attitude, who are treating others poorly, who are not doing their work, and you're kind of coddling them while the rest of your team is going above and beyond and doing a great job, that coddling of the person who is not pulling their weight is going to damage the relationship that you have with your high performers. There is nothing that is going to kill the spirit of a high performer more than you putting up with someone who's not pulling their weight. If you think about that, right? Like if you're someone who is going above and beyond, you're working overtime, you are sending extra messages, you are really making sure that you are doing the best that you can possibly do every single day in your job. And there's someone over here who's sitting next to you who is totally slacking off, doing a terrible job. They have a negative attitude. They don't align with the values of the company. And the leader is spending more time with that person, giving them second chances, letting them slack off. That is really going to damage your morale, right? Like it's going to be really, really hard for you to keep performing at that high level if you're not seeing that person have some sort of repercussions for the way that they're behaving. And so what you want to do as a leader is you want to set an example. If you want your high performers to stay, if you want them to keep performing at that high level, you honestly cannot tolerate the people who are doing so much less. And so that is really, really important for you to understand inside your company that firing is not just about that one person. It's about your entire team dynamic and setting the precedent that it's not okay to come and disrespect a team. It's not okay to come, if you have a dress code, for example. I was reading through an email just this morning. Someone had sent an email out, like a marketing email, and it was talking about how the time that they had to fire somebody for wearing a hoodie. And it wasn't necessarily about the hoodie, but at that company, they had a dress code and they were supposed to dress business casual. Every single day, this person in their email they were describing showed up in a hoodie, unwashed hair, like totally unkempt, sweatpants, just didn't adhere to the company policy. They were having conversations with them about how, this is not our company policy. We need you to show up tomorrow in business casual. And they just weren't doing it. And so at the end of the day, like, that's disrespectful. We're having this conversation with you. We expect you to show up the way that the entire rest of the team, the entire rest of the company is showing up. If you can't do that and you can't respect us by at least dressing in a dress code that we've all decided is good for us, right? I'm sure that was brought up in the interview process. If you didn't want to come to a company that dresses business casual and you wanted to wear your sweats and a hoodie every single day, there are so many companies that will let you wear your sweats and a hoodie every single day. So maybe that's a better company for you to work at. You accepted this role. And if you cannot adhere to the rules and you cannot adhere to what the company is asking of you to do, then unfortunately at some point, we're probably going to be letting you go. And all of this sounds really harsh, right? Like if you've been let go before, or if you've been in a situation where maybe your position was eliminated or you got laid off, like it's really hard to understand that your leaders were maybe going through a lot of hardship in figuring out how to let you go. Maybe they didn't want to. Maybe it was really, really difficult for them to have those conversations. Maybe it was really uncomfortable. Maybe they really, really fought for you. You have no idea how often they were actually in HR. I had another employee when I was at Specialized who actually was let go without my knowledge at all while I was on a trip in China. She calls me it's like 3 a.m. in China. She calls me and doesn't know what's going on. She just got let go, not by me, but by someone else at the company. My manager had to let her go. I didn't even know about it. They didn't even consult me about it. And to be quite frank with you, I had been in HR for months actually advocating for a raise and a promotion for her because I thought she was doing a great job. What ended up happening in that situation is she had said something a little off the cuff to our CEO, and there was nothing I could do about it. He didn't like what she said to him, and there was nothing I could do about it. It wasn't even worth consulting me, apparently, even though I was advocating for her to get a raise and a promotion, and I was talking to HR constantly about that. I was fighting for her on a weekly and a daily basis. It didn't matter because she said the wrong thing at the wrong time, in the wrong moment, to the wrong person. And some companies are like that, where it just doesn't matter. And that was a really, really tough pill for me to swallow, but you have no idea. Like sometimes there's a lot that's happening in the background, and sometimes there's nothing that your manager could have done. There's nothing that your leaders could have done. Sometimes it comes down to budget, and that really sucks. But sometimes, especially as the CEO and leader of a small business, you have to make really tough decisions about your team based on how much money is coming in. And in order to not go into the red in your company, you have to let people go. You can't afford their salaries. You can't afford their contractor rate. You can't afford their hourly rate. And so sometimes you have to make really, really tough decisions. But if you do have a poor performer on your team and you know it and you see it and your team is starting to feel it, you should know that you should be firing fast. And all you have to do is those two simple sentences. Today's your last day at the company. HR is going to walk you through next steps. And if you are the HR team, you should say, today is your last day at the company. I'm now going to walk you through next steps, and then walk them through the next steps in a very matter-of-fact way. Let them ask questions. You are not obligated to answer questions that have already been answered. You can say, we've already talked about this a lot. A lot of the conversations that we've already have led to this decision. You are allowed to say that. You are allowed to keep it brief. It does not need to be ugly. It does not need to get emotional. Nobody needs to be yelling in the room. This is an incredibly, incredibly hard moment for you, and also incredibly hard for them. You do not want to drag it out. do not make it harder than it has to be for everyone in the room. This is one of the hardest meetings and one of the hardest things that you may ever have to do. And if you're a dude listening to this right now and you're like, oh, it's no big deal to fire people. I have had many of my male counterparts say like, oh yeah, I let people go all the time. It's no big deal to me. Well, as women, when we are like super empathetic and we and not that men can't be empathetic, maybe I shouldn't even go here, but like as women, I know that we know everything about that person. We know their family. We know their kids' names. We know what their husbands do. We care about the people that we hire. At least I do. I know all of that stuff about my employees. And so if and when I have to let people go, it's really, really hard for me. It's really, really hard for them. We've become friends. We've become closer. And maybe that's on me, right? Like maybe that's my biggest fault. Maybe I want to care too much about the people who work for me. We've talked about this before. Like the people who work for me inside this company are my number one priority. And so when I have to let them go, or we don't have the budget to keep them on staff anymore, or they're not performing and I have to fire them, it is really, really hard. So don't make it worse than it has to be. Don't make it harder than it has to be. You can keep it simple. You can keep it brief. You can keep it short. If you liked this episode or you know of anybody who could benefit from it, please share it with them. We love it when you guys leave us reviews. So if you get a chance, please leave us a review on this podcast. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to the Business of Apparel podcast. I would so appreciate hearing your thoughts on the show. And if you know someone who could benefit from it, please share it with them. My biggest desire is to help other apparel professionals understand the nuances of our industry so we can all work toward making better product for a better world. If you would like to connect further, I'd love to invite you to send me a message through my website, thebusinessofapparel.com, where I do weekly trainings through my YouTube video channel, a weekly newsletter, blog articles, and so many more resources to help you start and scale a profitable apparel brand. This podcast is produced by Box 7 Media, who I cannot speak highly enough of. If you're looking to start your own podcast, you can reach out to Jeremy at Box 7 Media on LinkedIn anytime.